Hi, and welcome to Colony Kids SOS. I think this is like the 6th or 7th episode. And we're interviewing artists, creatives, and people that we respect in the city about their craft, their creations, the city, and the time of crisis. So today we have with us Jason and OnYing from Yat Pit. Hi.
Hello.
Do you want to just quickly introduce yourselves, maybe a little bit about where you're coming from, and yeah, start with that.
Hi, I'm OnYing. My Chinese name is OnYing. I'm born and raised in Hong Kong. I study fashion in UK, and after I graduate, I came back to Hong Kong and I met Jason, and we are very desperate to show our creativity, and that's how we met.
I think we were very passionate.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jason. Yes, hello. I was born and raised in the UK, and then I came back to Hong Kong after I graduated. So I think we kind of missed each other, but we had like a year in between us until we met. So we both came back to Hong Kong, I would say at the same time in terms of our passion. And when you're newly graduated, you're still excited and you still have a bit of fire in you. And we both basically wanted to come back and do our own thing. I think we didn't realize until we actually met each other that it was like, oh, let's do our own thing.
Yeah, because I think like since I came back, I've already started looking for a full-time job to pay for my living. So of course full-time job is burning your creativity usually. So
it's basically really commercial.
Yeah.
It's so design-wise and fashion-wise, I think for us, coming back from London, the difference is that it is so commercial here. It's a different type of fashion. So I think for us, we were like, okay, we got to do our own thing.
Yeah.
Make something that's outside of this commercial kind of system here.
I think I kind of go through a bit of a depression before meeting you, because
Yeah.
I was in shock that how commercial it is in Hong Kong to work in design industry, that basically you just follow the Excel. The Excel tell you what is a bestseller, and then you have to recreate it for the next season so that you can the company can sell more. And then I was like, oh wow, that they didn't teach me that at college.
That was also the shock though, I think,
Yeah.
from when we're designing. I think at fashion school, no one teaches you the commercial side of how to build the business, about the bestsellers and the production side of things. You don't get so much of that at school. And then what they do is they really tell you to embrace your individual creativity and really push that. And you do end up pushing that a lot, and you build up a big talent. And then for us, we came back and we were like, we still have a lot of that talent and passion. And it's like, when we found each other, I think that was just like a eureka ding. Okay, happened for a reason. And it was very instant. It was so quick. I mean, the name Yat Pit comes from, maybe 你可以講一講 Yat Pit 啦。
I'm gonna speak in Cantonese.
Yeah, sure.
And maybe he can translate in English somehow.
Somehow, yeah.
Yat Pit is come from 係嚟自有句言語叫做實畫都未有一撇嘅。咁通常咧okay, I can try in English. So usually, yep is an idiom that's saying that you have in Chinese character there's always like stroke and slash, but to make it into actual words, you have to somehow put it all together. And then usually the parents say that you have so many dreams, you said you want to do this and do this and do that, but you never put it together. So they would say that you have 10 stroke without a slash, saying that you can't even form a character. How could you actually come up with something? But something interesting with me and Jason is that once we met each other, we instantly be like, okay, we have this idea and we want to make it now. So it was very instant, and we put our idea from our head into 3D object quite quickly. So that's how we can make it happen. and that's
feel-
why the name of Yat Pit.
I'm kind of
Yeah.
curious to know what was the first. You said it was very instantaneous when you were like you knew. What was that actual conversation in short?
I still remember it. It was like
Mhm.
OnYing's like she had like a flat leaving party, so she was moving out of the flat that she was currently living in. And that was the first time I met her as well. A colleague of mine was like, hey, look, I'm going to introduce you to OnYing. You know, she studied at CSM. I think you'd get on. And I've been in Hong Kong for a year already, so I've been through that phase where you meet so many creatives and there is the kind of repetition of the same topic that you would say to each other. Like you would meet a photographer, you meet a graphic designer, you would meet anyone creative, and you would suggest, hey, let's do this together, or let's work on this together. But it was just talk, and it was never walk the walk. So when I met OnYing, I think it was so chill. We didn't even talk about doing our own stuff so instantly. It was more like hanging out, getting to know each other. And then it was me and another friend that we ended up staying the whole night, and then we were talking, and then in the morning we just got chatting about this idea about starting something together. And I think it was that morning that it was like, I think this is the beginning of this, you know. So it just happened, and then the name and everything just kind of organically just kind of like jigsaw puzzled slowly together.
Yeah.
Slowly in terms of everything we had already, but we didn't realize that it was all connecting so quickly as well. And then the next thing you knew, I mean, we've known each other for like a few weeks, and we were already looking for a place, a studio to work together. It was just really quick, and I think that for us was already like almost like a nodding to each other, like, you know what, we didn't even sit down and say, okay, we didn't even plan.
Yeah.
I think we just did it. We were like really actioning it.
It almost felt like you got nothing to lose at the same time. So
Yeah.
like, might as well, you know, just have fun.
Yeah, and I think deep down we both just felt it inside. We just knew we're not just doing it for the fun of it, or like, you know, it's not going to be like a part-time thing. We were just going into it hardcore. We went to Samsui Bowl, and then from then it was just like I think that moment, if anybody knew us, they'd just be like, oh my god, 你兩個真係好煩咯. Everywhere we went was like, 哇好靚啊，掃把一個地拖喺街嗰度，哇好靚. And then we were documenting so much.
We try to appreciate everything, but literally everything is worth appreciating in Hong Kong. So yeah.
So how would you
Everything.
describe Yat Pit to somebody who doesn't like? I don't know.
Someone that doesn't know it.
Yeah.
I would. That's quite an interesting question, actually. How would you describe it?
I think our first concept of how Yat Pit should be was trying to feel, or to reimagine what if the cultural revolution didn't happen. How would fashion be?
How would
now?
Chinese fashion would be
Yeah.
like? How would the chi power be developed?
Yes.
How would be all of those Cheong Sam and all of that kind of aesthetic, the the Mandarin collar? How would that would still be today? And I think that's how we really started to reinvent it and imagine how it would be. And then I think the research just really like snowballed, and then it just developed into Chinese culture, and then Hong Kong like lifestyle and Hong Kong culture, and it's
some sort of street style.
and then eventually I think by the time we got, I think for now, I think at this point it is very Samsui Bo and that I would say Kowloon side of Hong Kong, and that real grittiness of Hong Kong mood and attitude. I think it's still something that we learn every day, and we still figure out and get inspired by. So
How would you? Yeah, for people who don't know Samsui Bo and Kowloon, how would you describe that
We always have that-
grittiness?
the vernacular, very. For me, I always say that it is the real Hong Kong, like Kowloon. You know, there's the Hong Kong side, and it's more developed, and it's a bit more city and a bit more international. But for me, Kowloon is like the heart of Hong Kongers and culture, and the Dai Pai Dongs, and the Deitan, and the Gai Si, and the Gai Fong, and all of that. I think that you really feel it, like old Hong Kong maybe, or even a bit of like the Kowloon walled city vibe. I think
Maybe if we compare to like right now in Samsui Bo, some people said hoping some supposed to be the next Brooklyn or.
Oh yeah,
Since we like one of the reasons we really like Some Trouble at the beginning was that we think it looks like feels like
Dalston in London.
Yes.
So East London. So I
Yeah.
think, well, I mean, we both kind of maybe hung out there a bit, and then we got familiarized with that kind of East London vibe. And then when we came back to Hong Kong, it's different. Culturally, it's different. It's a bit of a culture shock. You don't really, it's basically different. And then discovering Samsoibo is like, oh, actually, slowly but surely, you kind of see the links of how it can be Dalston. It's a bit more raw. It's a bit more market based. It feels more like reachable.
There's a realness in Some Trouble.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah.
If I want to describe.
There's no filter.
Yeah.
It's really, really raw, and it's chaotic. And that's why I think also why we both like it, because it is so. There's so many layers. There's so many things to see. There's so many noises. So many senses. Every sense is like being kind of like shaken up, you know. So. And then it takes obviously a certain eye to edit and pick out those things that you like. There's so many details, but how do you know what detail works for you?
So then the next question is, how do you guys work together in terms of, like, when we kind of spoke about this before, you know, you kind of do your own thing, but you're super in sync. What is that process of bringing these ideas together and it turning into something?
I feel like the beginning of the research, like the point of like what direction we want to go in and what's inspiring us at the moment, that is always like a chat that you have with a friend, like how you feeling, and you know, and then eventually that gets turned into I think I have something that is similar to your point of view, and then that point of view slowly gets like molded a bit more together.
It's kind of like we doing like a badminton game, you know, we have one thing, ping pong, or we have one thing and then throw it to Jason. Jason added it a bit and then throw it back to me, and then I
like
throw it
literally
back
like in drawing form, or is it conversation?
Conversation form. And
any form.
Any form. Any form.
Could you give me an example?
It could be a movie in film form. You know, I could have watched something, I'll probably screenshot it, or I'll take the quote of that film and I'll send it to OnYing. And then from that, OnYing will probably send me a song. And then from a song, I'll probably send her the music video. And then from the music video, she'll send me the stylist. And then the stylist, I'll look into, you know, the hair and makeup. It's a constant dialogue, how we research.
I think the eye t-shirt is a very good example.
Yeah, the eye.
I was reading 1984, the book, and then I was like, I really want to put that idea into a t-shirt, but not literally having 1984 on the t-shirt. So then somehow Jason one day she took this police.
She totally found it.
Obviously she found the stickers on the street that says what the police.
We know you're watching, right?
We changed the phrasing. The original phrasing is like 冇偷嘢俾人捉㗎.
Mind your own property or
Mind your own
something.
property.
Yeah. And then that's what he found, and then I kind of felt like that is very perfect to fit into the 1984 idea. So that's how we kind of throw things to each other, and then
but sometimes you know, we talk about the dialogue. Sometimes we don't even have the dialogue. We're not very specific, like, oh, I'm looking at the 1984 thing. She didn't even tell me, you know. But at the same time, I'm already thinking about this eye and this surveillance and this, you know. So I think having that conversation about the interests and what's inspiring us, that already, I think unconsciously, we both kind of like have loads of different details going on. And then it's just a matter of time that we, depending on the different sittings that we have together, the information just kind of comes out, and then we start gelling things together.
So for those who haven't seen this T-shirt, it's the sticker that you see all over,
Around
like
Hong
on
Kong.
gates and stuff, that with the eyes that are for surveillance cameras. Has your relationship evolved, and like, do you find you're more in tune now as you've gotten to know each other so much more? And what are some of the pros and cons of working so closely together? Like, do you guys also have struggles?
Totally. I think you have to have the struggles. You have to have the fights and the disagreements, because I think that's the only way you can get a yin and yang out of I mean, the balance of any relationship, you know, there needs to be that kind of discussion, and then the kind of, I would say, success out of it is how do you figure it out? Even if you have a disagreement and you don't agree, oh, I don't really like that fabric, and you're like, no, I really think this fabric should be in the collection. It's like, how do you get in that middle way, and how do you figure that out? I think that's also like a secret tip. I don't even know how we do it sometimes. I feel like we just...
It's just so natural. It's like super organic.
It's not, and we're both very like, I don't know, we're both quite, we don't like confrontation. We're not that kind of people as well.
So I felt like we have, the good thing is about us is we like to read self-help books. And
We do, we
like,
really do.
We read self-help books separately, like we read different ones, but sometimes when it comes to a bit difficult time between me and Jason, then we will help ourselves and improve ourselves to
So sweet.
further
I
communicate.
just had like a eureka moment as well. Do you know what? It's like therapy with each other, but we don't realize that it's therapy. I think when we know we're both struggling with each other, it could be anything. It could be, oh, I'm not happy with about that, and she's not happy about that. But we somehow, because I think we're mature enough, and like you said, there's a lot of self-help books.
Yeah.
That's just a natural interest for both of us. We love reading those books, and those actually, we realize now that they actually help how we work together.
So
Amazing.
we like we kind of really grow together as well. So
But we always talk about this in any relationship, you know. It's so important that your mind is growing together. The moment it does, one slows down, one gets kind of like faster than the other, that's when it starts getting a bit shaky. And it's natural as well. It's okay for one to go in their own way. But I think for us, what's healthy is that we're growing mindfully in the same speed.
What, this is not on the original list of questions, but what is the most impactful self-help book that you've read?
The Book of Life I've been reading by J. Krishnamurti. I mean, that's like a year book. It's like a page a day. A lot of insight into emotions. And it's one of those books that you have to read the page probably 4 or 5 times to really digest it. And then it's just any kind of book. I think once there's something that kind of clicks and works, I know it's something I can just share that with OnYing. Or it could be like, I've had a bad day, I'm like just telling her all the bad stuff that I'm going through, and then she'll send me like a quote that she's experienced, and then that kind of lightens everything and it makes a bit more sense. And
OnYing, Leila?
for me, it was the conversation with God. Yeah. So basically, the first book was talking about how there's nothing's right and nothing is wrong, and that really hits me because, like, basically, whenever you get to an argument, you always feel like you are the right one, and that person, you always think he is also right. So that helps me to, there's nothing
Yeah.
wrong, nothing right. So yeah, why the trouble?
And then not only books as well. I think we've recently as well, we've been kind of experiencing with like tarot cards and angel cards, and I think that's also a nice way to kind of like get to know each other and like chill out and kind of like not have so many guards up and let them down and just be really kind of like red table talk with each other, you know.
And it's, Yat Pit is like, I guess, a fashion brand, but you guys do so much more than that. Like, obviously, even the way that you have the space in Samsorbo, and the photographs are always in that neighborhood and so on. I feel like, so it's not just a fashion brand, but in a way it represents so much more. Do you want to talk about that? And also, what are some of your key influences? Because I know that you guys have like so many different.
Do have a lot.
Yeah.
I think basically we said to you guys before how we share our, like, the kind of thing we are very obsessed with at that moment to each other. So that's how we notice Renham, for example. We're like, oh my god, we're so obsessed with his
I think
photo.
our
We're
process is quite similar with being obsessed with something.
Yeah.
when we're obsessed with something, we're like obsessed with it, and then
Yes.
we kind of brainwash each other. I would say we brainwash each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how we get into working with people from the other field, because we got so obsessed, and then we literally like message them, be like, oh my god, we love your work, and then
We didn't even message him.
oh yeah, true.
It was
we-
so
yeah.
but it's just like that's what happens as well. Is
Yeah.
that the fact that we're just obsessing over it, and I feel like maybe that's the manifestation that brings things like law of attraction and how that kind of connects with us. And I think a lot of that has happened, and I feel like the first 2 years of doing it, we really felt like there was a lot of things just like coming towards us, even without us kind of like asking or trying. I think that's when we were just like, we would have moments where we were like, what is happening? Why is this person getting in touch and that person? And we love that, and we love it, and we love it. And we were trying to like be as honest as possible with what we wanted to do. And yeah, and Ren's like a really good example. I mean, we were just obsessing. We just discovered his website, and I think we were going crazy. We were like, how have we never known this person? And literally the next day, somehow another friend of mine was suggesting that I follow his Instagram, because I didn't know it, and I'd already seen it the day before, and I was like, yeah, just follow, and then just like bombed all of his likes, and and then he messaged me, and then he was like, hey, do you want to shoot? And then that weekend, me and OnYing flew over. It was so instant again, and I think we just went with our gut feeling. Yeah. Sorry, what was the question again?
Influences? You're talking about music and the
For me, well, we always talk about this. Our original kind of ideas are very different from when we started Yat Pit. When we were trying to figure out what is Yat Pit, what's the backbone, what's the DNA, what's the philosophy. I'm really inspired by like Galliano and McQueen and all those British designers, and OnYing's like really influenced by like and inspired by Margiela. So we kind of have those aesthetics, which is nice because we have our own aesthetic, but somehow we always pull those things and meet again in the middle, which I always think that middle
I think
is Yat
that's
Pit.
what kind of needed in the brand, because otherwise it goes too extreme into certain aesthetic. I think it's nicer to have everything yin yang kind of situation.
Yeah.
Is the best. So a bit of Margiela influence, a bit of Galliano, McQueen influences.
That would would be
it's
the
a good
beginning
mix.
of how we started. But I think the key inspirations for me right now is reading, and I would say music.
What are you guys reading right now?
I'm reading Why Does the Dalai Lama Matter? And then from that, it might seem like a political thing, but for me, it's more of a research and dive into Tibetan culture. How do they dress? How do they dance? What are the colors in their dress? And, so that is what I'm getting inspired by. And the music, I think music's always been there. Music has always been, I think, an inspiration. It could be the lyrics, it could be the music video. Generally, it's the music video and the concert. All of it. All of it. Music is pretty big for me.
I'm reading Tibetan book of Living and Dying, and at the beginning I thought it was such a difficult book to understand, but actually it's not really. And it, like, the first few chapter was just telling you guys how our society have given us a wrong impression of everything. So it's the perfect time to read it now.
Yeah.
Revolution.
You're both very spiritual. Like,
I think we have always been like that, I think. But I've been brought up like, I would say Buddhist. Like we always had kunyam at home, and Mum would always teach us how to like burn the incense and do the cleaning and do the ceremonial things. Not religiously, but it would be something that I was growing up with. So it's always been around at home, and yeah. And then obviously OnYing's family has a bit of Taoism in there, and
how does that How do you experience that in your day-to-day or your practice or your creation?
I feel like you're more human about things. You're more human about things, and you realize that without having a passion and love for doing something, you're never gonna make it. You know, it needs to be close to your heart. If you really want to have something happen, or you want to make it ends up being your baby. It is your baby. It's like you just become, you live and breathe it, you know. And then it's also finding that juggle, not to hate that and become, oh, it's a chore, it's like a job. It's not a job. It's like it's like an outlet for your inspirations and your loves for things.
I think the way we're getting into all these kind of spiritual stuff is because it's part of a way to help you understand the world more, especially in this kind of time. You understand the world, you understand yourself more, and yeah, it's self-help book as well in a way.
Yeah. And you know what it is? It's also keep spinning out like what we're talking about.
A spirituality and how it exists in your practice or your creation.
I had like a really good answer just there. Now it's just like it's gone. The spiritual side.
There's a bit of meditation every day, a bit of mantra.
Do you know what?
It's
also that contradiction we were talking about with the fashion industry. It can be very contradictory. For us, it's like, oh, we don't want to make any more clothes, and we want to fill this system again and this cycle. And so for us, I think the spiritual side and connecting with that and being more human and rooted and grounded, it makes things a bit more sensible, and it makes more sense, and which is why the brand isn't built on a system that's going with the buyers and the seasons. And for us, naturally, it's just make the collection or make the pieces when they naturally need to be released, or so for us there isn't that pressure as well,
because we were thinking, how the school teach you to be a certain way. You look up to a certain designer and think, oh my god, he's doing a show in Paris, having catwalk. And then as a small brand, independent brand, you wanted to achieve that, then you actually think about, okay, I want to have a catwalk then, and I also want to have models, makeup, hair, photographers, a place for you to do the catwalk, music. All these causes so much, and you can never achieve that. And at the end, I felt, why am I fighting to
why are we chasing that? Why
we can't make our own kind of world, like the kind of show we actually want and think the audience might actually feel interested, instead of the mundane every season.
But I feel like that is the root cause of how badly the system is right now. Is imagine how many graduates there are every year who are doing fashion, and we're all fantasizing about having your own brand and your fashion show, and you're doing it in this city and that city. It's not realistic, because you need money to do all of that. And I mean, there's so many different elements and different parts to that. There's also the internship, the experience. The experience of working is so important. It's more important than you just coming out and then expecting to have a creative director role at somewhere. You have to really work and learn how things work around and how it's run. And I think for us, maybe because we both did that, we did the internships and we worked, and we had all of that experience, and then we kind of knew the rules. And you've got to know the rules and then how to break them. If you don't know the rules, how are you going to break them?
So what are rules that unfortunately you still have to abide by in order to keep it sustainable?
You have to if the customer wants stuff, you gotta keep on top of it. When there's sales, you need to keep on top of how to maintain that sales. So if there's interest in a particular t-shirt or a dress, how do you maintain that? Okay, we can sell it to that person, or I think that's what we're trying to figure out at the moment, because it is a new system we're trying to work out and a new method.
I think it's basically we have observed some sort of guy from like the neighborhood so much. We learn from how they work. For example, they don't have the money to fix a chair, so they would just create their own chair, like Michael Wolff photos, his bastard chair collection, you know. So we learn from that idea, and we realize actually a lot of things can be created in a cheap way, but not necessarily quality is cheap. It could be we can resolve the money problem creatively. So that's what we have learned from some Triple Guy Fong, and we kind of felt like, yeah, we can do it with our brand as well. We don't have to do a fashion show. We can do it in a Python, and you know what, like showcase our fashion at the same time earning money as well.
I think what some people also taught us was, I think in a society and a generation right now is it's very easy to renew things. If something breaks or if something doesn't work anymore, we throw it away and we buy a new thing. But in some people, it's very DIY. It's very, if my shoe is broken or my jeans are broken, I'm gonna fix it and make it work. I'm not gonna go and buy a new pair. And like, I mean, for us, I think that sustainability and that eco kind of mindset was really nice. And then we tried to like incorporate that and put it into the brand and see how the brand could work like that. So at the moment, we're also thinking about the stock, some of the little stock that we have in the studio already, and how can we rework it as well, instead of like, you know, I don't know, selling keep it, yeah. We're just gonna rethink about how to develop it.
Do you feel like the fashion industry that was very commercial in Hong Kong, has it evolved as well?
I think it's evolved in terms of a new kind of surge of all these new local designers. And I think it's nice to have this kind of community that's building up, that there are these little underground designers popping up. So I think that eventually, hopefully, it can kind of push a more of a creative mindset and less commercial mindset. We were talking about how it would be nice to see people more, designers or creatives, be a bit more daring. Do stuff that means more to them than what it should be like in the system. Don't get affected by the system so much, you know. Really do something that's a bit more pure.
Do something that makes them happy.
Yeah.
I think we have been suffering too much with our pay drop. So we should just have fun.
Enjoy it. Totally. Yeah.
Do you feel like there's so I think like the music community, at least the ones that I think we associate with, there's quite a tight-knit community that is very supportive and like mutually collaborative, and like you kind of try to rise together, and you kind of, do you feel like there's something like that within the fashion industry? Sense of community or support, or?
I feel like there is, since this FFF thing. Because I've seen like...
Yeah, I felt like there isn't before FFF things.
I do. Because I really felt like... I mean, there was an introduction to so many designers that I didn't really know about as well. So I was like, wow, there's actually a lot going on in Hong Kong. So it was nice to see that hub of like having those designers together and doing the little pop-ups, and even me who is in the industry like can see like, oh, there's actually, and so imagine what other like people can see. Imagine all the fashion students in Hong Kong. Imagine what they're like, you know, seeing as well. So I think it's good, definitely.
What do you think about, I don't know, this may have been already covered, but I'll put it out there and you can see if you have more to expand on it. What do you think of the design scene in Hong Kong now? And would you say that there's a way of defining, maybe it's a separate question, how would you define this generation in terms of both maybe your industry or the community you see yourself within, or bigger scope?
I feel like we're at a really interesting point. I feel like there's a standard that we're creating as creatives in Hong Kong. I think we're trying to raise the bar of how we should create and the standard we should create to. So I think it's nice to have all these different designers and creatives that we can see each other's work. We can see how each other are expressing and showing their lookbooks or showing their installation or showing their music videos or live streams or whatever. I think it's good to start seeing more so that we can understand how brands are working. I don't know, I feel like...
I think it would be nice for everyone to just develop their own style of presentation, of selling their clothes. Every brand can be different. Or the inspiration that they get from, or it kind of looks a bit boring. I felt like fashion in Hong Kong because there's a lot of looking outside instead of looking inside.
That's always been a topic that we talk about.
Yes, looking outside for, like, for example, whatever designers out there that's really famous, and your brand is doing what that designer have kind of been doing, and it's not very interesting, I think. Yeah.
Do you feel like that's different in different forms of art? Is that like a particular thing to fashion? Like, I mean, again, I think there's a particular community of music people that maybe we circulate around, but I do think that there is a lot of looking at what's here.
Yeah.
And I find that there's like a real distinction, and there's an effort, like, I don't know if it's conscious or not, to create a sound from here.
Yeah. I feel like it's also definitely your background of, you know, like, for sure, like, stepping outside of Hong Kong and maybe studying somewhere else for a few years, and you come back, you see everything differently. I think that was our case as well, you know. OnYing was born here, but I think the fact that she was studying away for so long, and I was familiar with Hong Kong just during summer holidays, but then coming back with that outsider kind of eye, you really see things so differently. I think obviously if you're here anywhere, if everything's really close to you, you kind of get numb to it. You get really numb.
Actually, there are people asking me, like, why are you still doing this kind of stuff? I see this every day. Like, why is it still interesting to you? And I just felt like we are literally the last colonial kids, like, literally. So why am I not doing it to preserve something?
Yeah, exactly.
That's why I think we should look inwards saying, like, Hong Kong, not not UK, not USA.
But and what's really interesting is, imagine if all the designers here, I mean, that would be really interesting, if all the designers in Hong Kong were reinterpreting Hong Kong in their own way. And that would be really amazing to see, you know, how, because there is so much here. But it's just it's a case of how numb you are, how you've become with Hong Kong. I'm nowhere near numb.
No.
I'm literally nowhere near numb.
I'm still excited to see everything.
We're like, sometimes we go to like the Hong Kong side, and we're like tourists again. We're like rediscovering streets, rediscovering the tram. Like, everything is still so new. And I love that. I feel like that's how you need to live every day. It's like, everything is exciting, you know? Even the dog turd. I want to see that. Like, you know, everything is exciting, seriously. There's so much to see in Hong Kong.
And sometimes I also like to travel with, like, tourists coming to Hong Kong, and like to give them a guide, because they would see something that you could never discover somehow.
Like we did recently, we did the cable cars, and we went to the Buddha, and it was just once in a while you do that again, and you're like excited about Hong Kong all over. It's new. It's a complete new experience. Because Hong Kong is so efficient, it makes you lazy. It makes you like, okay, I'll do my same route, I do my same bus route or my MTR route or whatever. Sometimes you break it up, and it's just a new channel, new page.
You mentioned, like, you feel like you're the last of the colonial kids. Actually, I mean, yes, it's a mindset. But I think there is that kind of an urgency. Do you want to talk a little bit more about what that means to you, or?
I mean, I born 1985. I experienced the British rules. So I had the experience of different culture, like the British and the Chinese. So in a way, for me, is how Yat Pit is like Yat Pit is like is yin yang merge of East and West, and that is just how Hong Kong is. That's why Hong Kong is so great. And with that experience, I think we need to keep it, use it and create something so that people now or in the future can have something to hold on to if everything is gone. I don't know.
But you know what? What's interesting is some people find it. I mean, we've had these questions thrown at us where they see it as a bad thing that, oh, these two designers are seeing Hong Kong through Western eyes, or, you know. And for us, it's not about looking through it with Western eyes. It's like OnYing just said, it's about the yin and yang of things. Hong Kong is based on that East and West mix, and that's why it's so amazing. You know, I think it's one of the only spots probably in the world where it is so heavily merged together. You can't escape it.
Yeah. I mean, if like people from the States, they have a certain characteristic, and then people from the East, like from China, they have certain type of personality. But if both of them merge, probably very balanced and like a very good person.
Basically, if the world right now looked at that idea of unity and coming together, something beautiful can happen like Hong Kong. Like if worlds literally came together and there was less borders and less like, oh, my culture is better than your culture, or this religion against that religion. If there was less of that, if people really worked together, it'd be amazing. Like amazing mixes, you know? You would come up with the, like, just for an example, like mixed race babies. So I'm saying that because I have like really cute niece and nephew at the moment. So I'm trying to like, you know, see the world like that, you know.
Yeah.
But I have to agree with you on that. Yes.
That was really.
They do look
very,
cute.
Sentimental. I was like almost
It's
like
time
moved
to-
to tears. What you
It's
guys just said there.
time to come together.
Yeah. What's your biggest realization last year? It's been a crazy year.
Yeah.
Everything can change. Everything is changing.
Overnight.
Everything is changing. So
Nothing is
try not
impermanent.
to hold on to things. I think maybe that's what I have learned.
That was your realization.
Yeah, you have to always like notice that everything is changing.
I realized that it's not the time to be sad, and I think we need to navigate that energy and the mindset, and we need to be more positive than ever. Obviously, it's a tough time, but for me, I mean, we're not actually that political at all. But I think when it's on your doorstep and what's happening to Hong Kong, I think for me, it was like, it would be the same anywhere else. It really woke me up. It really made me want to research more and understand what is happening with Hong Kong. Why is it happening to Hong Kong? So that was my realization into politics.
And I
Yeah.
think we have to use our creativity
Yeah.
as a solution
Yeah.
to things happening around us. Make fun of it, or I don't know.
Yeah, you need to have
fun as well.
It could sound a bit like awkward if you're like, oh, let's make fun, but it's almost like the way to be positive.
And I mean, actually, if we have, I mean, we all noticed so far, everyone's been like suffering, but there's always like memes coming up, laughing about the situation that helps everyone in Hong Kong out of the sadness.
Thank God
So
for that.
That's very
That
important.
was so important. Even the whole idea of Cantonese
that is a bit of like
and
a
the
Hong Kong
wordplay,
culture's
the Hong Kong
spirit.
culture spirit is that wordplay. You know, the playing with the English and the Cantonese together, and all these new words. Just through this political situation, all of these new words came up, and it was all trying to make it all lighthearted. And it's like that. It's like that saying where sometimes you just need to swear. and like get all those bad words out because it makes you feel better. Like you're releasing that tension. And so I feel like when everybody was doing that, when people were having a little bit of humor with it, it made it more like, oh, God, let's just smile together and get through this together. And serious stand for Hong Kong vibe, but also let's just enjoy it and kind of make each other a bit.
Having fun in a serious way.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Before last question is, again, maybe we covered it, but how are you guys feeling at this moment?
I'm kind of personally just finished my kind of self-retreat Zen hibernation mode. So I'm feeling energized and I feel ready to kind of be a bit more sociable. It's not supposed to be called social distancing. It should be called physical distancing, because I think right now we need to be more social than ever. We need each other more than ever. Can you imagine like just being stuck at home during times like this, when there's a protest going on, when there's COVID, like hanging around the corner? Like, we need to kind of look after each other.
You have to message your friend, how are you doing today?
Yeah.
Are you okay? Are you sad?
Because sometimes you forget. Sometimes you really forget that one of your friends could be at home by themselves, or and you just forget, and it's just nice to check in.
Yeah.
It's nice to check in on each other.
OnYing, how are you feeling?
I feel like I'm living every day as if this is the end of the world. This is how I feel now.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna do what I feel like I should do.
Yeah.
What's next for Yat Pit?
Well, we're working on the third collection. Well, we would say we're working on it. It's more research based. It's
We're thinking of new way to do our merchandise and how to put it into market. So yeah,
I think we also had like another like enlightened moment as well together about how the brand and what the meaning behind it, the philosophy. So I think that slowly, I think we'll share with people as well when it's ready. And of course the menswear, we haven't properly launched it, so I'm kind of working more on that at the moment. I think there's a lot going on, so there's a lot of inspiration, there's a lot of ideas, so I think we're trying to sift it and edit and sway things about, and again the ping pong match. I think we're still in that mode,
and we become more welcoming with other projects like artists or anyone, musicians.
We've always been like that as well, and it's almost feel like there's also another kind of wave of like, oh my god, there's a lot more we can do. There's a lot more, like there's writers we can involve, there's poetry, there's calligraphy, there's painters, there's...
I think because we're working on like a concept instead of just purely aesthetic, and that's actually what I have learned from my favorite designer Margiela, because he made his brand into something that is not just pieces of dress that makes you look pretty, but actually there's meaning behind that piece of dress and his brand. And I realized that at the end, fashion can be giving message to people. So
yeah, I think that's how we're looking at the third collection.
Yeah.
There's a bit more depth into every piece. A bit more soulful, spiritual.
Super excited. Sounds really beautiful.
I'm excited to see it as well.
The sound of the collection.
And that's it from me. James, do you have any questions? Burning questions? No. Anything else that you want to...
Thank you for this opportunity. It's been really nice, because sometimes I think as designers it's always nice to be asked these kind of questions, because we don't actually sit and talk about these kind of topics. So sometimes it's nice to even think of like, why are we doing this, etc. So yeah.
I think James does have a question. So annoying. James would like to know how the Yat Pit song came along, and talk more.
You mean
about
you mean
the
through Young Queen's song?
Yeah, I guess.
And that's how a lot of people know about Yat Pit, like a lot of that generation. So how did that come about? And
I think it was because I first heard of the Otaku Mob, like the song from the the song from Young Queens, and then I really liked it, and I felt like the youthful energy in it, and then I felt like, basically the first collection was a bit, I was thinking the whole Chain Dynasty silhouette really looks like hip hop.
Cool.
You know, like the big
It's big,
oversized top
oversized.
and the pants.
So cool.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I was trying to merge that two together. So
Yeah.
and then I noticed Young Queens and his gang, and then I was like, back in Triple X Day, he had a performance, and then I was like, okay, I want to dress you guys, and then that's what.
And then
we
they
did.
came to the studio,
Yes.
and then
That's how we met.
that's how I think
them.
that's when he saw the studio. I think he was
Yeah.
already getting inspired, and he got some
Yeah.
vibes of like how to do a song. And then the next thing he was like, "Hey, can we shoot the music video at yours? Because there's a
Yeah.
song that we've just written." And, blah, blah, blah. And then we were like, "Okay." And then it just became this whole new thing. And then you realize how powerful music is. And
Yeah.
it was really nice because it was again like all those kids that would listen to that music. Like maybe you would listen to like Slipknot or Blink-182, and you'd have the T-shirt, the band T-shirt, and it was like that moment. So that was really cute. Because they
Yes,
had
that's
no
right.
idea what Yat Pit was, you know. They were just like, "I
No.
want the T-shirt." All these
There's
kids were like,
always like Taobao copy of Yat Pit T-shirt. And
I actually want
they
those
will actually
more.
send it to Young Queens and be like asking Young Queens, is that your T-shirt? And then that's not even like Young Queens is not Yat Pit, you know. So everyone's
Yeah,
get confused, but
yeah,
it was
yeah.
it was fun.
It was definitely fun.
We never expected to have
That
a
was what,
song.
2 years ago?
I think so. No,
What?
probably more.
Maybe more.
I love how when they were filming that music video, me and OnYing were just like in the back, like eating noodles, like just like do your thing. We just came back from work, and they were all dressed up and really going for it, and we were just like slurping our noodles in the back. But yeah, I love that kind of raw,
Yeah, it
feeling.
was very funny. They were like, "Do you have some photos like that you take of the taken this day?" And then I was like, "Yeah, I got some." So I gave some to them, and that those end up in
In the video
music
as well,
Yeah.
like it was. I just love that attitude, you know.
Yeah, I feel like there is a sense of humility in it all.
Yeah,
you know,
for
real
sure.
interest and like spontaneity, and yeah, a sense of humility that is, for me, one of the most special things about this city that I really find. You
Yeah.
know, having lived in different cities or like the art community, everybody just wants it to work for everybody else.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's so beautiful.
And when it
makes-
works, it really works, and
Yeah.
it's really special. Yeah,
In
it's
that,
nice.
it's actually collaboration is actually more fun than
Doing it alone.
yeah.
It's so much more
so you
fun.
get a bit of attitude from those the
Yeah.
people that you're working with, and a bit of hours, and yeah, it's also like the yin yang mix.
Yin yang again. It's
Yeah.
that east west, north south. Like it's you gotta have a bit
The
of
mix baby is
the
good.
mix. The mixed baby is so important. Seriously, it is the mixed baby.
Yeah. All right. I think it's a wrap. Thank you guys so much. It was really amazing
Thank
interview.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chantal.
Namaste.
Thank you, James.